Maoist activity also increased manifold. Yes, Naxalism was a very, very serious internal security threat for India. The country will be in a position to eliminate Maoism or Naxalism, which we call the small farmers and peasants. They have always been exploited. It starts with a very, very high positive ideological motive, but it starts that way, but it degenerates into an organized crime.
Menace called Knowledge Answers. Welcome to Chhattisgarh, the one-stop destination for civil services strategy, current affairs, and mentorship that matters. Today, we bring you insights from someone whose pen has shaped public opinion for decades. His mentorship has mentored hundreds of UPSC aspirants. It is wonderful to introduce Mr. Sutanu Guru, a veteran journalist, author, and a teacher with over 40 years of experience in institutions like the Times of India, the India Today Group, and the Economic Times. Currently serving as the Executive Director at Sea Water Foundation. Mr. Guru's sharp analysis on current affairs is regularly featured on top media platforms. So let's dive into this exclusive session where we decode the changing dynamics of India.
Thank you so much, Rupali. And young friends, the name itself suggests what we intend to do. Chai with current. Current means current affairs. And the tagline below is cracking the GS challenge. So our intentions are very clear. But I'll also state this. We are not an organized coaching center and we will not be. There are dozens of coaching centers, some good, some average, some very bad, and we realize your need to pay a hefty fees and go to the coaching centers because civil services exams are very highly competitive. But what we offer is a force multiplier. So when we discuss and analyze news and current affairs, developments, issues and controversies, we will always look at it from a historical perspective so that you gain new and fresh insights. Now, what do I mean by historical perspective? I think मेरे ख्याल से आप सब जो सिविल सर्विसेज की तैयारी अभी कर रहे हैं, इंक्लूडिंग यू, मुझे लग रहा है कि आप सब लोग 21वीं सदी में ही पैदा हुए हैं. ऑलमोस्ट ऑल ऑफ यू वर बॉर्न इन दिस सेंचुरी. सो आप लोग जाइए अपने पेरेंट्स से पूछिए और योर एल्डर्स, go and ask them the following. When you were born, were your parents using smartphones? When you were born, did your parents enjoy high-speed internet the way we do it now? When you were born, were your parents using digital payments and transactions? When you were born, were your parents watching videos and shows on YouTube? And when you were born, were your parents spending hours every day on social media platforms? The answer is no. So young friends, see how dramatically India and the world have changed in just about 25 years or less. So every time we look at news and current affairs developments as it relates to general studies for civil services exams, it's very important to look at historical perspective so that we gain fresh insights and we have the edge during the civil services exam. And do remember, friends, I have always repeated this, that being better informed increases the chances of your success, not only in your career, but also in your life. And we all pray and hope that you succeed in your civil services efforts. हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि आप कामयाब होंगे, but remember this, being better informed is a surefire recipe of success no matter what career you eventually adopt.
Thank you, sir. Welcome to this episode of Chai with Karan. Today, we are going to discuss, there was a civil services mains paper question that tells us about the threat of Naxalism. So, could you elaborate us, sir, about this issue?
Yeah, actually, Rupali, the threat of Naxalism or Maoism, or as officially it is known in the official government books. It's called left-wing extremism. It had been a very, very serious danger to India between, let's say, the late 1980s till about recently. But there is very good news on that front, Rupali. The fact is that over the last few years, security forces in India have been extremely successful in eliminating not just the cadres of the Maoists, but also their top leaders. So to that extent, as of today, when we sit in 2025, we can say that yes, Naxalism was a very, very serious internal security threat for India, but it is no longer that serious a threat. And as you can see, in the chart which is there was a time, when lots and lots of about more than 136 districts in India across many states were badly affected by Naxalism or Maoist violence. Now that has reduced to just about 36 now, and the success of security forces, particularly in Chhattisgarh, in recent times means that that kind of danger doesn't exist anymore. And do remember, the Union Home Minister Amit Shah has said that by March 2026, the country will be in a position to eliminate Maoism or Naxalism. That may or may not happen, but yes, the good news is that the very, very serious threat posed till a decade ago or even 5 years ago doesn't exist anymore.
Sir, how the most Maoist menace has declined?
As I said earlier, two key factors are involved here. One is obviously the security forces, intelligence gathering, their activities, their ability to enter forest areas or hilly terrain or deep interiors where Maoists and Naxalites normally stay and operate has increased manifold. And it also needs political will. It's like this, let's again look at recent history, whether it's terrorism emanating from Pakistan cross-border or it's Naxalism. Between 2004 to 2014, every year there used to be a bomb blast in a major Indian city. And every year, hundreds of Indians, innocent Indian civilians used to die. And there was no stop to it. Every year. And, you name it. Similarly, Maoist activity also increased manifold. But political will came about after 2014 when a new regime came into place. And you must remember, Rupali, and I think you know about this, that 2014 के बाद से किसी भारत के बड़े शहर में बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट या इस्लामिस्ट काइंड ऑफ अटैक हुआ नहीं है. There have been attacks, Pathankot, and mostly confined to Jammu and Kashmir. But एक भी शहर में एक भी ब्लास्ट नहीं हुआ है 2014 के बाद. Similarly, the same kind of political will has been in operation when it comes to dealing with Naxalites. So when there is political will, there is a lot of criticism of the government by human rights groups and other NGOs. You are committing atrocities in the name of fighting Maoism and Naxalites. But the regime has obviously said that our first priority is destroying the Naxalite movement. And to a large extent, they have succeeded.
Well, sir, if you look the actual question in the GS paper, it says that Naxalism is a social, economic, and a developmental issue. What do you think about it?
I think, Rupali, we need to go back a bit in history, to really understand this. Is traditionally for centuries and centuries, the peasants, which we call the small farmers and peasants, they have always been exploited by landlords, by zamindars, by kings, by emperors, by others. They have never got a fair and just due. Even if they produced agriculture products, a large part of it was taken away by the king as taxes. Some of it was snatched away by the zamindar as something else. So they had a very raw deal. So throughout history in India, we have had peasant rebellions, peasant revolts. It's not a new thing. It's happened even in the 13th, 14th century, 700-800 years ago. It's happened in the 18th century. It's happened in the 19th century. So peasant revolts have been there. What has happened with this particular breed of Naxalism, what we call Maoism, is very interesting. Historically, it's a very interesting thing. From a purely peasant grievances, it became a ideological war front. So I think in one of the earlier episodes we had discussed how Mao Zedong used ruthless violence to take over China, and the Communist Party became completely in control of China, and Mao Zedong was the effective leader, and he never hesitated and shied away from using violence. So Mao Zedong became the inspiration for a large number of communists within India. And by the 1960s, the communist movement was very, very strong in West Bengal. तो एक जगह है, एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट टाइप का है बंगाल में, उसको नक्सलबारी बोलते हैं. तो वहां पे ये पहला वायलेंस शुरू हुआ, पुलिस फायरिंग हुआ, देन दे रिटेलिएटेड एंड देन इट वाज एंडलेस साइकिल ऑफ वायलेंस. So because it started in Naxalbari, we call it Naxalism. And because it was inspired by Mao and his violence, we call it Maoism. But actually it is left-wing extremism. And gradually what happened is that it did not stay confined to Bengal. Because peasants and farmers and poor people and tribals, they were exploited, they were oppressed in Chhattisgarh, they were exploited in Bihar, they were exploited in Jharkhand, in Odisha, in Andhra Pradesh, in Karnataka, in Uttar Pradesh. So a stage came where the Maoist ideology spread to all these states, and it became a very, very powerful and dangerous movement for the sovereignty of India. आपको ये याद रखना पड़ेगा रूपाली कि there was a time, I think it was before the 2004 Lok Sabha elections, there was a serious attempt and the Maoists had almost succeeded in assassinating N. Chandrababu Naidu, who was then the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh. So Naxalism and Maoism violence was a serious threat. And आपको ये भी शायद याद होगा कि 2013 में the entire Congress leadership of Chhattisgarh was killed and wiped out by Naxalites in an ambush. And in Jharkhand, in Chhattisgarh, in Odisha, Andhra, hundreds of policemen have died. Policemen, CISF, security forces, CRPF forces. So what happens is that, in the liberal circles or in academia or in media, for a long period of time, academia, media and the so-called intellectual world, has been dominated by left-wing people. So naturally, it is but natural to have sympathy for tribals and the poor farmers who have been oppressed. But as it happens with most movements, it starts with a very, very high positive ideological motive, but it starts that way, but degenerates into an organized crime. So in Punjab also, in Kashmir also, when terrorism started, you can say that, people in Punjab, people in Kashmir had genuine grievances. But every group in India has grievances. Now that is not an excuse for indulging in this kind of senseless violence. So I would say that the question is relevant. But also there is a tendency in Indian liberal circles to take it too far. Yes, farmers are exploited. Now, what do we do to change that situation? I think gradually things are improving. It's not as if India has regressed back into the medieval India. There is progress. So there are many grievances still that persist, but farmers are better off. Tribals are better off. And to use that an excuse to indulge in senseless violence, in my opinion, is definitely not a good idea and not healthy for any democracy.
But sir, what about the social and economic aspects?
See, in any society, there will never be complete equality. No society is completely just. Even if you take Western democracy, there is a lot of injustice. There is still a lot of exploitation. And the marginalized, the poor are invariably exploited no matter what the society is. And in India, you have an added element called caste. right, and other ethnic identities. So in India, social conditions are such that exploitation has been an inevitable reality, and economic exploitation too has been an inevitable reality. And development, or the what we say, the fruits of development, have taken too long to reach these affected people. Tribals, villagers, poor farmers, landless laborers. शायद आपको याद भी होगा कि करीब 40 साल लगभग हो गए हैं तब राजीव गांधी प्रधानमंत्री हुआ करते थे, and he said that for every rupee that we send from Delhi, only 15 paisa reaches the genuine beneficiary. So that element was there, and possibly that was a trigger that started the Naxal movement in West Bengal. But it became an organized crime racket, as I told you, because the Maoists became extortionists. They started killing innocent villagers. They started raping women, and the same thing happened in Punjab. Initially there was silent support for Khalistanis in Punjab, but when Khalistani terrorists started raping village girls, the entire tide turned. Same thing has happened in Kashmir. So, social and economic and development aspects, yes, but up to a limit.
But sir, are the security operations enough?
No, not really. Security forces are very, very important. They are critical, as we have seen in the recent times that Chhattisgarh mein lagbhag there was a time when there were 3 or 4 districts in Bastar region of Chhattisgarh where even the policemen were scared to enter. It was completely controlled by Naxalites, and there were parts of Jharkhand. And about a decade or decade and a half ago, there were parts of Odisha also where the police was scared to enter. And security operations were necessary. It was important, and they have succeeded. But that is not enough, because security forces can kill Maoist leaders, but they cannot kill the idea of grievance and injustice. For that to happen, we need political and economic policies that ensures that the material benefits of development, whether it is education, whether it is healthcare, whether it is female literacy, whether it is LPG connections, whether it's electricity connections, we must ensure that all these benefits reach the tribals and the other marginalized communities. If that happens, there will be no need for an ideological grievance. And to an extent, I would say, successive regimes in the 21st century, to some extent, I will not say it's a complete success, but we have to a large extent succeeded in ensuring that these basic needs, एक घर होना चाहिए, एक इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कनेक्शन होना चाहिए, एक टीवी या रेडियो होना चाहिए, ये सब चीजें अब पहुंचने लगी हैं. So in the long run, I am very, very optimistic that this violence of Maoists will gradually fade away.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable input. So stay tuned with this episode of Chai with Current that takes you beyond news and current affairs into deeper insights.
Thank you so much, Rupali, again. And young friends, I repeat myself, to be better informed increases the chances of success both in your life and your career. Thank you.